So Omar,
Yes.
Islam's Paul, what does he do? One day, the hadith says that he passes by a woman and she was wearing a hijab, and the hijab was covering her hair.
Okay.
Okay? And then he hits her.
Well, why? She's covering for
He
us,
hits her
isn't it?
because she's covered.
That's insane.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الإمام والمهديين وسلم تسليما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear sister Sarah B, how are you?
Obviously,
Good to have you here.
I'm truly honored to be here.
The honor is mine. So Sarah, today we want to talk about the head covering, the hijab, and what is its origin and whether or not the head covering is obligatory in religion. But before we get to there, I just want to say that it is extremely unfortunate that conversations that have to do with topics pertaining to religion are seemingly largely forbidden in the minds of most followers of religions, especially the religion of Islam. And it's almost like everybody thinks, all the Muslims think that the form of Islam that is present today is the final form. It is the correct form. It's blasphemous to question it, or to even consider it to be wrong. And if somebody did question an aspect of the religion or wanted to entertain a discussion about it, you would think that people that have the truth with them would be able to do more than just curse or make fun of or draw conclusions that have no basis in reality, like the person that is posing the topic is an agent or an enemy of Islam. You would think that people that have the truth would be able to combat falsehood with the truth that they have. So they shouldn't be worried about anything. They should actually be concerned about saving the souls of the individuals that are speaking and the people that are having these discussions or having these questions. But instead of gaining fruitful discussions out of the topics, it's so sad. So many times we see that the people, they disregard the entire topic, disregard all of the points, all of the evidence, and they just want to curse. They want to, mock, and they want to basically slander.
That is so true, Father. Because that's all you see right now, don't you?
Yes.
Everything that comes out from what you say, the only thing that you get come back instead of evidence or anything to disprove you, all they're saying is things like, you're a kafir, you're a dajjal, you're this or that, and that's it. That's
and it's not even really just about me, Sarah. It's about anybody.
Everything. Everybody.
Everybody that brings up a topic or a question that has to do, or a discussion that has to do with Islam that's outside of the mainstream view, they consider him to be a heretic, and they're like, just waiting to start making death threats against him or to issue a fatwa against her or whatever it is that they have in mind that they want to do. And it is unfortunate because it goes against what the Prophet Muhammad had taught us and told us to do. The Prophet Muhammad and his family, they always told us to question our religion and to understand it. Even if we were called disbelievers, even if we were called crazy, a person has nothing that should be more important to him than to reach the truth when it comes to their religion. And how else can a person reach the truth? How can a Jew, in the view of a Christian, how could a Jew find Jesus Christ if he didn't question his own faith?
Exactly.
Right? How can
Exactly.
a Christian, in the view of a Muslim, reach to the truth of Muhammad, accepting Muhammad, unless he questions his own narrative, right? So it's like they encourage questioning a narrative, only to the point where it leads to where they're at. Their comfort zone. But they don't want to question after that. A Shia is so happy in encouraging Sunnis to question their narratives so that they can, realize that there is a conspiracy in Islam and that Imam Ali and the Ahl Bayt were oppressed. But then they don't want to question the narrative after that. It's pathetic, to be honest with you.
Truly, absolutely correct.
And we have narrations from the Ahl Bayt, from the Imams, that have clearly stated that when the Mahdi comes, one, nothing will remain of Islam except for its name. Nothing would remain of the Quran except for its writing. The mosques themselves would be empty of guidance. So if we believe these words, we have to assume that, the mosque and the people that are preaching in the mosque, it's not the place to go.
Exactly.
The majority, you shouldn't listen to them. Because they're going to lead most of mankind astray. And that's why the hadith says that when the Mahdi comes, he does what the Prophet of Allah ﷺ does. When the Prophet appeared in the time of the Jahiliyyah, the ignorance, he destroys all that which came before him and establishes Islam anew. Which means what? Which means that the state of the Muslims in the time of the Mahdi, it's the same as they were in the time of Rasulullah, in a state of ignorance. They have no religion, and just like the Prophet had to bring Islam to life again and tell people about the religion, the Mahdi has to do the same thing. Except the Mahdi faces a harsher time, because the Prophet, during his time, they're just worshiping sticks and stones. But in the time of the Mahdi, everybody is using religion as an argument against him. Nonetheless, none of this stuff should stop us, and we're going to continue moving forward, and being a shining light in the darkness for all those who really wish to seek the truth.
Yes, Father.
So today's topic has to do with the head covering. Let's get into it.
It's a heavy topic.
It is a heavy topic. Head covering is a symbol of Islam now. Anytime you see a woman that's wearing a head veil, you think to yourself, Muslim.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And most of the schools of thought within Islam consider that the headscarf is absolutely obligatory. It's a commandment that you can't break. And that it is in the Quran, and anybody who breaks it is a non-believer, really, and is going to end up going to hellfire. This is the opinion of most of the scholars. Some people, they consider, God's more merciful, but in general, it is like something which is fard. It's a farida. You have to do it. Okay, in the opinion of most people. Certainly, there are exceptions. When we look at Christianity, we also find, oddly enough, even though we don't see it on the normal, as a symbol of the normal Christian women or the normal Christian population, we still find that the nuns that are in the churches are wearing this full headdress. They're totally covering their hair. And you find in a lot of the paintings and imagery, film, you find women that are Christian, early saints, early Christians that were wearing this headdress.
Yes.
And many of the images that are associated with Mary, Mother of Christ, and almost all of them, you'll always find her wearing like some sort of headdress. And when you look into Judaism, you also find in most of the imagery, and you find in real life in communities of Jews, across America and in the Middle East. Not all Jews, but you'll find some Orthodox Jews, practicing Jews, their women are always wearing a headdress or a head veil. It's a little bit different, obviously, from Judaism to Christianity to Islam. In Islam, there's 3 forms of like a headdress that they have. They have the hijab, right? And the hijab is pretty much like it's a head cover. Can you put it on for the viewers here so that they can, slightly show them what it would look like?
So the hijab is more for like the hair. Basically. Yes. So they say, because hair is the woman's beauty, so they would like cover it all the way.
Exactly. So it would be like something like this. Exactly.
But without any of the hair showing.
Amazing. And then the second form is the khimar.
Ah, yes.
And the khimar, so it would basically be like a hijab, and it's covering,
all the way,
the face.
Yeah.
But the hijab, it's not short like a normal.
I think it goes all the way.
It goes all the way down here to like the waist.
Yeah.
It will cover. It will extend. So it fully covers. The only thing that's showing is the full face, and the khimar extends all the way down to the belly or the waist region. Okay. And then you have the third form of a headdress in Islam, and that is the Nikab, and that's what's on the screen right now. If we can pull it up for the viewers, they can see there it is. It's and they have different types of Nikab. Some of them, they have holes there where you can see the women's eyes. And sometimes you don't have holes like this. You have a bunch of little pinholes.
It's like a netting.
Yeah, it's like a netting where they can see out of it, but nobody can see in it.
Yeah.
And in Christianity, their headdress is something that's in between the hijab and in between the khimar, depending on if they're a nun or if they're in early Christian or what it is that they're doing exactly. And we also have in Judaism these images right here, which are going to be displayed by our producer, that shows the headdress in Judaism. And you can see that in Judaism, many of the times, like there are parts of the hair that's showing depending on the school of thought that they come from, or,
It's fascinating that there's like so many versions of it, and there's not just one, which is just cover yourself like.
So at first glance, somebody would say to themselves, well, I mean, obviously, if Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they all have the hijab in it, or a form of hijab. Obviously, this is from God. And obviously, each one of them, inherited this from their prophet or their messenger, because this was a divine commandment that was given to Muhammad, it was given to Jesus, it was given to Moses. Right? And that's why these people are doing this. So it seems like a strong proof. It's only when we go into the nitty-gritty, the small fine print of the religion, the details, when we investigate, when we choose to not listen to the preacher or the rabbi or to the imam from the mosque and just take their word as gold, because what they do is they stand there and they just say, it is obligatory. Yeah. But when you investigate for yourself, when you have enough self-respect for your own brain and mind, that you say, okay, look, I'm going to need to do a little investigation and see where this comes from. This is what you find. You find that in Judaism, God brings down all of these complex commandments and laws upon Moses. And these commandments cover pretty much every aspect of life that you can think of for 600,000 Israelites that are living with Moses at that time. It's covering, topics on, like that, basic ones. You can't murder, you can't steal, you can't fornicate. It speaks about what happens if your neighbor kills your animal by accident. It governs the trading and the laws of offerings to the Lord and how they have to live as a community. It governs everything.
Everything.
But one thing that is visibly missing from the laws that were given to Moses was a commandment from God that women wear a veil. This is not there.
SubhanAllah.
And I think that's quite shocking, in fact, that a religion would adopt a practice and the assumption would be made that it's based on a law that was given from God, but then we find that it's not there. God doesn't say it to Moses anywhere. He doesn't say, tell the women to cover up. Nor does Moses say it to his people.
Okay.
So then what is this based off of?
I wonder, actually.
Yeah. It's based off of the writings of the rabbis.
Oh.
The rabbis, they make ijtihad. Ijtihad is an Arabic word that the scholars do when they don't have a particular law or a particular answer to a question that they want to reach. And so what they do is they, by means of logic and through their analyzing of scripture, they come to the conclusion themselves.
A bit strange. How did they even come to that conclusion?
Well, here's how they come to the conclusion. So in Numbers, there is this, I'm telling you, it's so complex. They have answers for all things. So there's this passage in Numbers where if a man has all of a sudden a feeling of jealousy.
Yes.
Okay. And he feels like, I don't know, I feel like my wife's cheating on me.
Just a feeling.
Just a feeling.
Okay.
But he never saw her cheating on him. He never heard from the neighbors that she was cheating on him. He never had a witness come forward, nor did he have a confession from the woman herself, nor was there a man who claimed that they were having an affair. It's just he has this feeling of jealousy. What does he do? Well, the Bible tells him what he does. And in Numbers, basically what he has to do is he has to take his wife and he has to go down to the priest. Okay. And basically over there with the priest, it says that she's to go in front of the priest and the priest is to unbind her hair. Okay. And then the priest is to make her read a curse, and he reads a curse and basically states that, if I am lying and if I was having a secret affair, that I'm not confessing about because my husband feels jealous, then I accepted the curse of God. And the curse of God would be that my womb would not carry children. I would always have like miscarriages and my belly will swell. Okay. And this will be the sign. So now if she confesses, great. If she don't confess, then they have to read this curse. They have to write the curse. They have to put the curse along with some dust from the tabernacle in the water. She has to drink the water. And after that, the curse will be upon her only if she's lying.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the rabbis, what did they do? They thought about it and they thought to themselves, the verse where it says that the priest unbinds her hair means that her hair was binded.
Oh.
It means that the people at that time, okay, that the women covered themselves.
This is a bit of a stretch.
It is an extreme stretch because maybe her hair was just tied in a certain way or tied up and he had to let the hair loose. But they understand that as there being that the women at that time were wearing, the biblical times during the time of Moses and were wearing a head veil. They also take the Song of Songs that was written by Solomon, in which Solomon, it's a poem in which Solomon is speaking about his lover, and he's describing her. And he says that her eyes from behind the veil are like doves, and her hair is like a flock of goats. And so they say her hair is like a flock of goats. That means that hair can sexually excite a person.
What a conclusion.
And therefore, it is immodest and inappropriate that the woman not cover her hair. And they also reference a verse in Genesis where Rebecca, before she's married, she veils herself from out of shyness. She veils herself from her husband, and so they say, "Oh, look, she's using a veil, and she wasn't married. So what should we do about this?" So there's no direct commandment. That's the point. That says in the Hebrew Bible that you have to. And that's why many Jewish women, they don't. Okay, today they don't, because there's no direct commandment that says it. But it was a law that was implemented based on the ijtihad, or the research and conclusions and fatwas of the rabbis. Wow. So then what happened? So then it became like a thing that they made a religious obligation. But it was already a practice that was taking place amongst them as a tribe, as a community.
According to the time, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, so basically back then what was happening is that a virgin girl would not wear a veil. Okay. But the moment that she would get married and she would be with her husband, she would have to wear a veil.
Oh, like a symbol that she's taken.
A symbol that she's taken.
Okay.
You got me?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. So then that became the way that they could identify people.
Okay.
Whether they're single or whether they're married. A single woman that you could potentially marry, you can look at her and see her hair. Okay. A woman that's married, she's off the market. You can't see her anymore, so she has to, it's only her husband.
That makes sense. It's like a ring, though. People
exactly. It's like a ring.
Yeah.
Now, that is in regards to the hijab. Nikab.
Yeah.
Okay, the Nikab, which is on the screen right now.
Yes.
That also existed in Judaism.
Oh. Didn't know that.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
In the story of Tamar and Judah, basically what took place was that Judah, so he's one of the sons of Jacob, and he has a son. This is after Joseph, they oust him, and he's in Egypt. Judah has a son, and he marries her to a woman named Tamar. Shortly after they're married, his son dies. But it was Jewish law and practice, basically, it was the law, that if a husband died and the wife was left as a widow, the brother, if there was a brother, to that man, he had to marry the woman and he had to raise from her children. Okay? And the children would carry on the name and the legacy of the brother. Do you understand?
Yes, Father.
So Tamar ends up getting married. Judah marries her, then to the brother of the husband that passed away. But he doesn't like her. And he doesn't want to be with her. And he feels like he's forced. And so basically the Bible says that he ends up spilling his seed, outside of the woman so that he doesn't impregnate her. And this infuriates God God sees it as an act of rebellion. Like he's trying to deceive God and rebel against the commandment. And this was a serious thing. The punishment for the person who would refuse to marry the widow of his brother is that he should be taken first to the priest, and if he's and they should talk some sense into him. But if he doesn't accept after that, they bring forward the widow, and she spits in his face.
Oh, because what he's doing is dishonorable.
Exactly, because what he's doing is dishonorable. So she'll spit in his face, and then they have to take off one of his sandals, and he's pretty much like cut off from his people.
Oh.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the guy, the second husband, he was forced to do it. He didn't want to do it. And in the end, God gets angry, and he causes him to die. So now she has two husbands that are dead.
Fortunately.
Now, Judah still has other son.
Yeah.
And she goes to Judah and she tells him, like now it's the duty of the next son. But Judah in his heart, he's like thinking, this woman's bad luck. I already gave her two of my sons and they died. And he doesn't really want that she marry his last son. So he convinces her to go away for a while, and mourn at her parents' house until, later. And he promises that, eventually, inshallah khair.
Trying to get rid of her.
Yeah. So she goes and she realizes that, it's seeming like he's not wanting to do this. And she's getting frustrated. She's embarrassed. Her name's on the line. And she decides that she's going to, take back her honor. And so what she does is that she goes, and the Bible states is that she changes her clothing. Okay, so she wears a different type of clothing. It doesn't specify exactly what, except that she veils her face.
Ah, like a Nikab?
Like a Nikab. Her face is fully covered.
Okay.
Okay? And then it states, between brackets in some versions of the Bible, that this was the clothing of the prostitute. Okay, so the Nikab actually in Judaism is a symbol of a woman that's a prostitute.
That's crazy.
Not a holy woman, not a woman that's trying to draw close to God, but a prostitute. Yeah, exactly, a prostitute. Why? Because back then, the prostitutes, they don't want to show their faces. It's a shameful act.
Oh, true.
So naturally, they want to hide themselves. So they'll hide themselves by veiling their faces, and that way their clients don't even know don't even know them.
Okay, that's crazy, because like the comparison between what it is then to what it is now is insane, just because of the time period and the mindset of the people. Wow.
So back then, it's not like today where the prostitutes are wearing like real short clothes and exposing all of their body and these types of things. No, they would cover themselves in full.
Wow.
Okay. So that, in short, is the history of the headdress in Judaism. And of course, there's a lot more details to it, but this is, in short, the summary. The headdress was in Judaism. It was a conclusion that was drawn based on these verses that I spoke to you about by the rabbis. There was no direct commandment that women have to wear a headdress. It was a symbol of a married woman. And it is something that is not practiced by all Jewish women today.
Yeah.
And the Nikab also existed, but it was a symbol of prostitution. Okay. Now, Tamar, before we move on to the next topic, this woman, Tamar, by the way, she ends up, getting pregnant off of Judah because Judah impregnates her. Yeah. And she had taken a seal, a symbol, and a staff from Judah in order that if she can prove that he was the father of the child. And so when word got out that she was pregnant, that he wouldn't accuse her of being promiscuous or something like this. And he'd have to cover her and take her back into his household.
Yes.
And guess who she ends up being? She ends up giving birth to a child, and she ends up having grandchildren, and their grandchildren end up having grandchildren. And out of her descendants comes Jesus, the son of Mary.
That's why you can never judge.
You can never judge.
It's amazing.
It is amazing, isn't it?
Really.
Okay, so now let's move to Christianity. If the headdress was not a Mosaic commandment, and it was just tradition, really, maybe Jesus said something about it. Like, why are the nuns covering themselves? Exactly. What is the origin of the headdress? Maybe it came down in the fifth covenant, in the Jesuit covenant.
Yeah.
We actually find that in the New Testament, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they don't say anything about the headdress. And there's no quotes in the New Testament from Jesus Christ where he says that women have to cover their head at all. There's no such thing.
Yet the nuns wear it like a...
Yeah. So where does it come from?
Like it's a uniform.
Well, it comes from Paul.
Okay.
So Paul is this disciple. He proclaims himself to be the disciple to the Gentiles. Jesus, if you remember, he had 12 disciples.
Yes.
One of them, named Judas, betrayed.
Yes.
Okay, and then he was replaced with another disciple, who's not Paul. But then there was this guy. He was a Jewish guy who was living during the time of Jesus and his disciples, and he hated Christians so bad. And he would kill Christians. He would kill the followers of Jesus. And then one day, he says that he had a kashf, he had an epiphany, he had a revelation, a vision, that Jesus came to him and told him that he's going to be a disciple of his. Okay? And so he proclaimed himself a disciple and took it upon himself to go spread the word. And Paul, he spreads the word, but he's not on the same page as the disciples. And he's certainly not on the same page as Simon Peter, whom Jesus appoints as his vice-chair. And we can do a whole episode, inshallah, in the future about Paul. But in short, there's the New Testament itself preserves many arguments that take place between Paul and between Simon Peter. And Paul is pretty much calling Simon Peter a hypocrite. Okay, and accusing him of like in secret sitting with the non-Jewish people, the Gentiles, but then in the eyes of the people, he runs away out of shame. He accuses him of hypocrisy, accuses him of lots of things.
That should be enough for someone who believes in Jesus and is vice-chair, the position of Paul.
And Paul also differs with what Simon Peter says you have to do in order to be a Christian. Simon is saying that you have to circumcise your children, your boys, just like Jewish people do.
Yeah.
Paul's saying no. Paul is responsible, actually, for most of the conversions to Christianity that take place in Europe, and he's also responsible for the version of Christianity which exists today. He encourages in his version of Christianity to comply with the rulers of the world.
Okay.
He also teaches that it's not so much important to obey the laws of God, that it's more important to just believe in this idea that Jesus was God and that he was crucified for the sins of the people. And if you do that, then that's enough pretty much.
It's true. That is the Christianity of today.
But yet, Paul implemented some laws of his own. And one of them, which he speaks about on more than one occasion, is that women have to cover their hair. And he is insisting on it so much, they're saying if she don't, then she should shave her head bald.
It's like, where does it draw the conclusion from?
Well, the conclusion is, Paul's saying what? He's saying that all Christian men now, they should never wear a hat. That wearing a hat is offensive because now nothing is above them except for God. So God is above men.
Men, okay.
But women have above them men.
Okay.
And so they have to have the headdress over their hair.
So this hierarchy.
Well, remember, in Judaism, and Paul was a Jew, the headdress was a symbol of what? It was a symbol of that this woman is now married. She belongs to this man.
Oh, that makes sense.
The man is her shepherd now. He has, know, it's like he captured her. It's the net in which he proclaims ownership over the woman.
Okay.
So Paul is saying that all women are underneath men, and so they have to wear this headdress, and he's extremely adamant about it. Without quoting Jesus, without quoting scripture, it's just him speaking from his own self.
He just took his old tradition and just implemented and made a law from it.
Exactly.
That's insane.
And that is the origin of the hijab in Christianity. An invention by Paul, who never met Jesus, who was fighting with the vicegerent of Jesus and accusing him of hypocrisy.
So unfortunate.
And who was killing the followers of Jesus and had lots of their blood on his hands.
It's unfortunate.
Propagating the Jewish tradition that also does not have an origin from God. Okay, now we come to Islam. What is the origin of this idea that hijab is obligatory in Islam? People, they always reference in Islam, unlike Judaism and Christianity, they reference verses which they consider to be clear verses, in which God, through the Prophet in the Quran, is commanding women to wear the hijab.
Yeah.
And the verse states, and the women should strike their khimar over their jiyub. Jiyub. Jiyub means pockets.
Interesting.
Sometimes you'll find this verse translated as like that they strike it over their bosoms, their chest. But in reality, the word, it means like pockets. If you look it up in the dictionary, it will quote that verse from the Quran and it will say pockets. And or that which is in the pocket.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And you find out what does it mean?
Yeah.
And they say that it means that your outfit, your shirt. Because
your clothing.
You have pockets in your clothing.
Yeah.
You have an opening here where your head comes out, and you have openings where your hands come out.
Okay.
And you have an opening where, the rest of your body, your legs or whatever, will come out. And so everything that is in your pocket,
your clothing,
your body right here, you should strike the khimar over, the veil over.
Oh, just like a...
Yeah, so they say it's the same thing. You're striking it over your chest, you're striking it over your body parts that are within the pockets, because these are pockets, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like, these are pockets.
Yeah. Oh, I had no idea.
And further evidence that this is what it means is that the word in a singular form appears in another surah where God is commanding Moses to put his hand in his pocket, in the veiled area, right, his dress, and pull it out, and it will be shining.
Also, it confirms that word.
And what do they understand it to mean? Is that he has his shirt. He doesn't have a turtleneck on, but he has a shirt, and so he places his hand in like that.
Okay. Oh.
Do you understand?
Yeah, totally.
And he pulls it out. Puts it in, pulls it out. So the pocketed area is this.
Yeah, the openings of your
dress that you're wearing.
Okay.
So if a man could put his hand within his pocket like that, then perhaps the women at the time, they could also do that. So part of their chest is showing through their dress.
Yeah.
So the verse is saying, pull the veil over it. Pull the khimar over it and cover it.
SubhanAllah.
Okay?
I understand.
And Muslims from that time until today, they do not all agree or even have evidence for what the hijab is supposed to look like exactly. So for some people, this verse that I was telling you about, they say, okay, well, this khimar that the woman's wearing, that she has to strike over her chest, then that means that it was a head veil that was already covering their head, and now we have to extend it to cover all of the body. And so they get the khimar idea to mean that which extends from the head, covers the hair, and goes all the way down. This is exactly what the rabbis did. With they're coming to their conclusions. Other ones state no. Yeah. There's a hadith that we heard a companion say. Okay. That the woman, all of her, is an aura. It's something that's like seductive. Seductive, yes. If you look at her, it will excite you. The whole thing, even her face, and so the veil has to cover the hair, has to cover the face, has to cover the eyes, has to cover the chest, has to cover everything. And so for these Muslims, the niqab is that which was made obligatory. Okay. The hijab for them is the niqab. The niqab is the proper hijab. Yeah, for the real one. It's the real hijab. While some Muslims think, no, the face and the hands are okay. Okay. Because there's another hadith. There's so much. There's another hadith in which another companion states that that he heard the Prophet say that the aura of a woman is everything except for her face and her hands. He points at her face and at her hands. And some people say, oh, well, actually, when he was pointing at her face, he also meant her hair too. And so that for that reason, hijab is not obligatory. A small group will say that. Oh, okay. You know, the women that don't believe in that hijab is obligatory, but that you should just cover yourself modestly. Scary how many conclusions they're all drawing. And the general population of Muslims around the world, they just stick to, okay, well, we should just cover our hairs. Yeah. The reasoning that they give for that God, makes it obligatory that a woman wears a hijab is because they say that she is a sexual exciting object, something that will cause men to basically to fall. Yeah, that they'll imagine her or lust after her, and so for that reason we have to cover the woman up in order to protect the man from going astray. It's sad because it's meant to be a thing that the time period was using to protect the woman,
And now it's become a symbol of just, not a protection anymore, just a means to...
Well, some scholars will say that. Like some scholars will say that the reason for the hijab is also to protect the woman. Yeah. Because the verse says that it's purer for you. So they draw the conclusions. But there's no explicit verses or, narrations from the Prophet Muhammad where he specifically instructs in all clarity what the hijab should look like and what should it cover. It's all conclusions that are drawn.
It's so sad because all three religions seem to be just drawing conclusions. There's no direct command from God, clearly, from the direct Prophet himself.
There are some traditions, a few of them, from Imam al-Rida, Shia traditions that where somebody asks the Imam about the hijab. So look now, like Imam al-Rida is the 8th Imam. Okay, right. So now the Prophet passes away. Imam Ali passes away. Imam Hassan passes away. Imam al-Hussein passes away. Imam Zayn al-Abidin passes away. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir passes away. Ja'far al-Sadiq passes away. Musa Kazim passes away. And then is Ali al-Rida. The whole Umayyad dynasty went away. And now we're in the Abbasid dynasty. And they're still confused. They still don't know what the hijab is supposed to look like.
Wow, that's a testimony in itself. It's not clear and wasn't clear for the people at the time.
And so they ask him, and a few of these narrations mention that it should cover the hair.
Okay.
And yet, we find that there is a little bit of a contradiction that's taking place in the Muslim Ummah during that time period.
Oh, what is that? I was like,
oh, it's crazy, Sarah. So there is this hadith that states, and it's a Sahih hadith, that Umar ibn al-Khattab, okay, and this guy, he was like for the Sunni Muslims, the symbol of like wanting to protect the woman. And wanting like women to be covered, and wanting to protect men from women. He is like the Paul of Islam, this guy.
Very clear.
And this guy added lots of things to Islam. We should also do a whole episode about him, about how he changed the adhan and he added in there as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, and he took out things, added things to the religion of Islam. So Umar, Islam's Paul, what does he do? One day, the hadith says that he passes by a woman and she was wearing a hijab, and the hijab was covering her hair. Okay. And then he hits her.
Well, why? She's covering for
He hits her because she's covered.
That's insane. He hits her because she's covered.
Absolutely. He hits her because she's covered. Because he asks her, are you a free woman? And she says no. And he says, the hijab's only for the free woman.
Hijab is only for the...
And he hits her so that she unveils herself because she was a slave girl.
Because of the society.
Yeah. So just like in Judaism. Where you have the virgin. She would not wear hijab.
No.
And in society over there, the married woman would wear the hijab. Over here, it was forbidden in society that the woman who was a slave should wear the hijab.
Oh, because it's a symbol of a
because the awra, that which is deemed lustful or seductive for people, that which should be covered for a slave girl is different than for a free girl. Okay? For a slave girl, it's only from her belly to her knees. Yeah. And that's why in Islam, during those time periods, all of the slave women were topless, and their hairs weren't covered, and their body was totally showing. And for years and years after that, they would be sold in the market. And you even have, so you have many paintings which demonstrate this, and we hope that the producer can put them in. And also photographs.
Yeah.
Even of minor girls during the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
Okay. And we don't want to put any photographs of minors in this episode because of the fact that they were minors, and that's but they're available online, and either you can put perhaps blurred pictures of women from the Ottoman Empire that were serving these princes, their masters, and they were forced to walk around in the palace completely naked.
Yeah, open for them to see, basically.
Open for them to see.
Yeah.
And on the marketplace, they were sold openly. So if the argument for the existence of hijab
is to protect women, or to protect the men from being aroused by naked women in society, that don't even make sense, because they were all over the place. Exactly.
They were serving them in their homes naked.
Yeah.
They were walking around in the streets naked.
Exactly.
They were being sold in the marketplace naked. So it has nothing to do with morality in society.
Clearly not.
Absolutely not.
You made it very clear. Like, it's hypocrisy, really.
Yeah, of course it is.
So there's a different agenda and attention behind.
So then what is the purpose behind it? And what we find is that clearly God wants men and women, and does command that in the Quran, in many verses, in the Bible, on the tongues of Jesus and the rest of the prophets, in the Torah. God commands man and woman to be modest.
Yes, it's true.
To be humble. To have shame. To be decent human beings. God is against promiscuous behavior, lewdness, immorality in general, for both sexes.
Yes.
But what we find is that he does not command in a clear fashion at all, in a direct fashion at all, in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, in the Torah, in the Bible, in the Quran. There are no verses that state that a woman has to cover her hair.
Yeah.
This does not exist.
It's clear you can't find it.
You can't find it. But what you do find is that the women that were living around the time of the Prophet used to cover themselves. And that it was a tradition of society. And we do have evidence that before the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, was even sent forth as a prophet at the age of 40, that the practice of women veiling themselves or wearing hijab or being covered very modestly from their heads to their toes, that this was already a practice that was taking place in the household that the Prophet was raised in. It was a sunnah that Abdul Muttalib and the women of his family used to do.
Okay.
And the Prophet Muhammad carried on this sunnah. Fatima al-Zahra, she did cover herself fully.
It makes sense for the time period.
Khadija covered herself fully. Zainab covered herself fully. Peace be upon them. But there's a difference between them covering themselves fully out of their own choice and out of it being a tradition that was practiced by Rebecca or by the daughters or the family members of some of the prophets and messengers. And it being a divine obligation and command that if you break it, you're going into hellfire.
Yeah, that's the sad thing. I was like,
A very big difference.
Yeah, it's huge.
And so the hijab is a sunnah. And it's a very beautiful sunnah.
Mm-hmm.
And if a woman wants to wear hijab, she should wear hijab.
Yes.
If a woman does not want to walk in the streets and allow anybody else to look at her hair, her head, any part of her body, she absolutely has the right to do so.
Exactly. And that's beautiful that she has that choice.
But to force women and to terrify them and terrorize them and make them think that they're going to go to hellfire.
Scared them.
Unless they wear the hijab, when we know for a fact that women that were around the prophets and the messengers, like Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and the women that were around him, they didn't wear a headdress.
No, they didn't. It's not documented anywhere.
And to force little girls that are yet to even hit puberty, to force them to wear the hijab at the ages of 2 and 3 years old is a great crime.
Definitely.
To make it obligatory upon them when it has no basis in scripture, except that it was a practice that the Jewish people did, and then a practice that Paul did, and Umar and the people that were with him, they enforced it, through physical beatings on women that were on that time, and except if they're slaves, then they would beat them to take it off.
It's just insane.
Then this is not something that we can accept.
No.
And so we'll stop at that point. I think we've left the viewers with a lot to kind of contemplate over and think about. And Imam Ahmad Hassan, he said that the hijab was a sunnah of Abdul Muttalib. It was a sunnah of some of the prophets.
Yes.
But it was never, ever, ever part of a divine jurisprudence that was given to mankind from Adam's time all the way down.
No, it's so clear. I just wish people could see that they're just following the past nations, the wrongdoings past nations have done. Just how the rabbis have drawn that conclusion and did what they did with it, then to Paul and then to Umar. And I just wish people could see that connection. And you made it very clear, Father. And I just hope that people who can hear this. So thank you so much, Abu Said.
Thank you so much for joining me.
It was an honor.
It's an honor to have you here. God bless you, and thank you so much for being here. And inshallah, we have many more episodes in the future that we'll do together.
Yes, Father.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
I am so grateful and honored that the riser of the family of Muhammad has come out and finally liberated women and given us the truth of the stance of hijab. Why? Because all my life, personally, and all the women I knew, they have been dismissed and shunned, and especially when they speak on behalf of religion or express their beliefs or claim to be Muslim, they are automatically just looked down upon just because they're not wearing a head covering. Her whole heart, her faith, and her relation with God is just thrown out the window just because she's not covered. It's really sad that if I even appear on a video or I come out to talk about religion, people don't want to hear from me just because I'm not wearing a head covering. And just based on that, a woman wearing a head covering or not, people have already come to the conclusion and judgment that she's either bad or good. And who are we to judge? And he has come forth and told us that only God can judge a person's relationship with him, and that it was never part of God's commandment, and that why it was in society is because of the scholars' own interpretations of things. And you don't understand how freeing that is to know that it's not from God, because the people pushing it that it's from God is what terrified many women across the whole world, that they're not good. They would actually question their own beliefs due to not wearing a piece of clothing upon their head. And that was very sad. And truly, he's proven that he is a man from God who has come forth to spread justice and equity